Hello, science fiction fans in China. I'm Rebecca Moesta, and I'm an American author of science fiction, mostly for children and young adults. I'm so pleased to see that the China Science Fiction Conference is able to go on as scheduled this year. I know how impressed my husband, Kevin J. Anderson, and I were when we attended in 2019. I truly hope that the 2021 convention will also inspire science fiction fans and authors all over the world. This incredible event deserves worldwide recognition, and I'll continue to follow the China Science Fiction Conference online. I hope you enjoy the conference, and I wish the organizers and attendees of the event every success. I'd like to share my screen with you now. I'd like to talk about science fiction, the many layers of good writing. Again, I'm Rebecca Moesta, and I've written more than 40 books. I have also written many books with my husband, best-selling author Kevin J. Anderson, including books of advice for writers. I am also an editor and co-owner of a publishing company in the United States and a business person. I have a master's degree in business administration. Art has many layers, and writing is an art. Artists must develop more than just one skill. You can't just know how to write sentences and then sit down, write a lot of sentences, and have a good book. All art requires many layers of skill. This is true of every art: music, painting, filmmaking, dance, and especially true in the art I love most, which is writing. Layers of skill in writing are many, and I'll only talk about a few of them today. The first is plot. What happens in the book? Sometimes there are major plots and then under plots and then plots under those, and sometimes they all weave together to have one outcome. Pacing. That is not, a book cannot be just about people sitting and talking for the whole book, at least usually not an interesting book. Pacing involves changing when things happen and what happens, and speeding up and slowing down, and always keeping the reader's attention. Characters are another layer. I like to see characters that a reader can care about. Those characters, in order to be real to the reader, usually have to have multiple layers inside them, and they usually aren't perfect. They have flaws. They have certain ways that they speak that's different from the other characters. They have phobias. There are a lot of different areas for a character. Another layer is the setting. Each chapter or each scene has a setting, and that may be, the setting might be in a rocket ship, or it might be in the throne room of a medieval castle, or it might be in a forest. But in all of those cases, you need to describe the setting, the place, and bring the reader into that. And then world building is the skill of putting everything about your book, the people, the environment, the education, the beliefs, the financial systems, everything that works together in the whole book is your world building that your characters will live in. Point of view is another layer. It's which character are you looking at the action or what happens? Whose eyes are you looking through? And why is it interesting to have the perspective of that character? Another layer is showing the action. Don't just talk about what happened, but let the reader experience the action through the eyes and the senses and the reactions of the character. Dialogue. There are many sub-layers to dialogue that make it important. But one of the most important things is to remember that dialogue in your book should not be like dialogue in the real world. Dialogue in real life can be extremely boring and would just waste pages and make the reader bored. You don't want to have an entire page or two of people saying, "Hello, how are you today? I'm fine. And how is your mother today? She's fine too. It's nice weather, isn't it?" This is not the sort of conversation that the reader wants to read. The only time, perhaps, that you would use that kind of dialogue is to show that something is dull and boring, perhaps. Otherwise, the dialogue should always be a method of telling you more about a character or moving the story forward. The language that's used is another layer. Sometimes one would use very rich language. Sometimes authors use fast-paced language or special language that makes them sound like people from a certain class of society, like perhaps a burglar would have a different way of speaking than royalty. All of the form of language is an environment for your book. Sensory details are another layer, and that's a way of giving your reader experiences like the smells and the taste and the sounds that are going on in the scene and feeling those through the character. Science fiction also has a very special skill, which is asking, what if? The writer imagines a change in technology or society. Then the writer explores how the world might be affected, how it might be different because of that change. Here are some examples. What if all weather on Earth was controlled by satellites and the satellites broke down? Or what if humans had to build giant engines and move the Earth out of the sun's orbit to keep it from being destroyed? You might recognize that plot. Or what if aliens came to Earth to hunt humans for sport? Those are all examples of what ifs from current science fiction. And the layers of writing are like geological layers. You might only see the surface, but there is so much more beneath the surface. It's like geological strata. And like an iceberg, most of the skill may be beneath the surface. The reader may not see it all. But in order to keep the reader interested, we need to learn those layers. And that's all. Again, I'm Rebecca Moesta. Thank you so much for having me at your conference. And I so much hope that we can see each other in person soon.